Welcome to Ghosty Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Welcome to Ghosty Talk Show. Find your own voice and lead from within. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, good afternoon from London, UK. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within.
Over to you, Shireen. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, and thank you for being with us. And thank you, Nomsa. And Carol Ann, it's, being the writer within is so key, and absolutely, having written my own book, I can only just say it is so valuable to write your book, but also to have someone to guide you through those journeys. So it is such a powerful and important thing. And it certainly has transformed my life in many ways. So, but today's topic, which is really about, do you struggle to say no? Do you struggle to stand in space and help, decide to take a stand that's a little more contrary to what you thought before? Or are you one of those people that step aside and try and hold the relationship and still inside feel that something is wrong and know what you're doing wrong? Well, I'm Sharon Lovegrove, and I help women with imposter syndrome who procrastinate, micromanage, and hide. And I just help them step into their self and allow themselves to be their perfect, imperfect self. Because after all, none of us are perfect, but we're exactly perfectly where we need to be right now. And we are perfection personified. So that's me, and I'm really looking forward to today's topic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shireen. So our topic today is tough compassion, how to use this well in business. So basically, as a leader, you have to be kind. You have to be a kind leader and set clear expectations, and you have to give honest feedback. As a leader, you have to encourage growth. You have to be transparent in whatever decision you are making in that workplace. You have to treat people like people, not animal, the same way you would like to be treated. So I would like to hear Shireen, because you chose this topic. What is the meaning of this topic and why did you choose it, please?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this week I've been doing some work on looking at my critical judge. All of us, as we start and grow up and socialize, we develop a judge that can help us or it can hinder us badly, and I think that when we have a judge that's not discerning but is judgmental, it can get in our way. And what really got me going was I was busy looking at, my judge is called Cruella de Vil, all right? Cruella de Vil of the 101 Dalmatians, and she is as mean as hell. And the reason I actually mentioned, thank you for, certainly the idea that Carol Ann is doing her, talks about storytelling, was I really found out where my judge came from and what it's really doing for me. And what was really interesting was, because of the way we work in NLP, one of the things is that we actually look at saying, well, behind every behavior is a positive intention. Keep looking at the positive intention and keep seeing everything as really nice and gentle. But sometimes you have to step back and stay in that space and say, no, actually, this isn't okay. So if someone is busy doing something that isn't okay, you've got to look at the costs and the benefits to this person. That doesn't mean you can't be kind. Compassion, we mustn't confuse stepping into tough compassion and not being kind. We're always kind, no matter what. But the thing is, it's how we deliver the tough compassion, how we say the no, how we explain to people that what they're doing isn't going to serve them in the long run, and it isn't going to serve the world in the long run. And you are just basically offering them that knowledge. You're not sitting there in judgment of them, but what you're doing is you're offering them the knowledge. And so what I was thinking about, my Cruella de Vil is actually my internalized mother, which is, it is quite difficult. And what really came up for me was, I wasn't able to stand up to my mother. I wasn't able to say no. I had to run away from South Africa before I could finally step into myself. And what really happened then was learning. I had to learn all over again who I was, how I needed to fit in the world. But I had to really learn my no's. I had to learn how to be able to say no to people in a way that I didn't separate from them, and that I created the relationship so that, where I worked in the environment I was working, that people didn't kind of gang up against me, but they would follow the rules, or they would follow the reasons why I've outlined those rules. And so it was always about being able to step in that space and hold that compassion and be kind, but also stay tough. Yeah.
Interesting. Because, it's being able to understand the behavior and have an awareness towards what's going on for the other person, their emotions. And that's actually empathy.
Yeah.
Having that awareness. Compassion is something different. It's where you take that understanding and you're moved emotionally to actually do something about it, to support the person. So, there is a difference there, but it's important I think, to have empathy, to understand where they're coming from. And there is, for me, there's always a learning behind the action, but sometimes, yes, you do have to sort of stand and have that toughness and say, no, this doesn't work for me, and explain in a way such that it's not a blaming or being judgmental. Because being compassionate is actually, there's non-judgment in there as well. But once you've actually stood and you've decided to be able to say no and create that boundary, then look for what's the lesson here? What is it that other person has come to teach me? What is it I can learn from that? And interestingly enough, I've just had an experience yesterday and today. Something I saw and I heard, and I just literally went into, I was really angry and upset, but I was shocked and I felt wounded. And part of me just wanted to just give up everything because of what was said. It's like, oh God, I'm useless. I'm not up to this. I'm not good enough. All of that, the inner critic that you were talking about, Shireen. And I just thought, just be with this. I just let myself sleep on it. I just asked for guidance on it, and then woke up this morning. And I did wake up early, and it was going round and round in my head a bit. So I ended up doing a bit of meditation, then going back to sleep, and then waking up, thought, I need to say something. So I did. I emailed the person and just stated from my point what it seemed like, and made a request, and and said, I was I thought I was going to get I would have been told beforehand, before I actually heard this and saw it, because then I'd have been prepared a bit more for the fact that something I'd done wasn't going to be used, and a reason, and that this is a great learning opportunity for me, and I got a response, but the response, I literally had to go like this and go, okay. I felt the anger energy coming back, it's like, oh. But I sat with that and thought, okay, this is where they're coming from, this is their response. And I then got another email that said, and picked out one of my points and actually cleared that up, and that you said, and for that I am sorry. And I felt the sorry that was there, and that moved me to tears. It's like, okay, I got that. And then I got one of my requests done, so I was actually able to then go and listen to what had been said wasn't any good or wasn't up to scratch, and I'm learning from it. And all of a sudden, having listened to that, I can see their point, what they were saying. Everything has got all that energy that was here. This upset, it's just gone. And I go, wow, I can use this, to move forward and to learn from. And I can now actually reply and say, well, there's this, and this, and thank you. But literally, the whole thing got diffused. But I was able to actually, for once, stand up and actually message the person. In the past, I'd have been, oh, I can't do this. I wouldn't be able to find the words. I'd have been so thrown out of balance, So it is actually just standing, and it's having compassion for yourself, I think, and being able to feel it and then respond. But yeah, draw those boundaries. So this topic is great, and I can see be able to use this in business. Really, really important for leaders. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann and Shireen. You always talk about cruel Devel. She's very talented, but cruel. She's very, very talented, but in real life, she's not like that. Because my daughter did a film with her. So you talk about basically you have to have compassion, not coming in a judgmental place. And Shireen, and you talk about sometimes you have to step back and be in that place where you have to look at the cost. And basically, I agree with you. Sometimes you know when you are making a decision, or when you work with someone, normally I never used to like Carol Ann or what she was saying, that if it was her before, she wouldn't basically write the email. For me, basically, when someone comes and tell me something, I have to look at the place, because my grandmother used to say to me, when someone says something to you, you have to look at it. Are they building you, or are they destroying you? Because if they hear something, they shouldn't come and repeat it to you. They should actually tell the person that is telling them to actually talk to the real person. So what I do is, if someone tells me something that upset me, I have to look at it this way. Is this person building me, or are they actually telling me something to upset me, or do I need to do I actually need to react in this situation? So if it was before, I would just react to the situation and get upset. But if I'm working with someone, like for my business, when you hear Ngozi Talk Show, it says find your own voice. In life, there are no guarantees. Lead from within. If Carol Ann comes to me, I have to look at, is Carol Ann building me, or is she coming in a place of control freak? Because there is two people that will come to you wanting to really build you, wanting to see you really, really succeeding. But then there are some people who are basically control freaks. They like, wherever they go, they like to control everything. So if you get sucked into that control freak thing, you have to look at the price. If I like, sometimes I hear people on Ngozi Talk Show, they're coming here telling me the advice and like putting suggestions. I have to look at it. Okay, if everyone has a vision, will our vision, we support each other? Yes, it's fine. Even if we disagree, to disagree is fine. Even our beliefs are different, it's fine. But we still have to be there to support each other. At the same time, I have to look at it as a leader. That does this support the culture of Ngozi Talk Show? Does it support the beliefs? If it support the beliefs, then I'm okay with it, to change it as a leader, to change with compassion and look at the price that I'm going to have to pay as well, like you were saying, the cost. And sometimes if it's not something that I believe in, I have to say no straight away. Because in that way, if I'm saying no straight away, not saying it not into whoever is talking to me in their face, that means that I'm being honest. And I'm letting them know that there are some things that I can say no to, there are some things that I can say yes to. So I'm fine doing that. But before, if somebody comes to me and say, Nomsa, do this, I will just say because I don't want to upset them, because I don't want them to feel bad. I don't want to feel bad. I'll just say yes, but I'm not in that place anymore. I feel that as a leader, you have to have love, you have to have compassion, you have to empathy, and being able, not coming in a judgmental way, and being able to create boundaries, like Carol Ann was saying, create boundaries and principles, work with the principles as well, and also leave a place for growth for people when they see opportunities to come to you and say, oh, I've seen this, would you like to look at it? Because that is you being a leader and learning to have boundaries, learning to say no when it's necessary, and also being a good listener, listening to people when they come to you with growth and with the ideas, and being able to welcome those ideas, which is not a very tough thing to do. It's not a good, it's tough, that habit, to actually get used to it, because if you are someone who likes to control, then you find it hard. But for me, I had to, it's something that I had to meditate to be able to welcome growth, meditate about it and let go of control. Over to you, Shireen.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, actually, Nom. So I'm just briefly, sort of when you're saying about listening to ideas, many people will come in with ideas of how they think something should be run because they've got their ways they've been taught or the ways that work for them. And yes, listen to them and then put it through the sieve of, does this fit with my vision, with my beliefs and values and where I want to go? And that's the best place to come from. That's the most empowering place to come from. But then being able to say to them, no, that doesn't work for me because, and that's where the compassion comes in of it, accepting and acknowledging their input and being able to stand in your own space and what you stand for. So yeah, that's great. And I just wanted to sort of add to that, and just to reinforce what you were saying there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I think I'm on. Yeah, just seeing it. I switched myself off or not. Yeah, I think what's so important is that we have to understand we have, the story of the two wolves, the good wolf and the bad wolf, and really learn to identify. Now, and I don't really believe in good and bad, but what I do believe in is what is helpful and what is not helpful. And I love your analogy there, which is, does this person build me or does this person destroy me? But we also got to realize we have a person, we are these two people as well. So we also need to be aware of those inner voices. Is this voice building me or is this voice destroying me? I know I swatched my hands around, but anyway. So the whole thing is, one is we've got to know ourselves. We've got to know who are we, and if we feel good, we feel productive, if we feel expanding, if we feel all of those kinds of things, then that's telling us that we are aligned with ourselves. If we're going the other way, where we're feeling sort of revengeful or judgmental or aggressive or, all of those things, we land down there, then that's a really lower frequency energy, and it does not build, it destroys. So it really is about finding out who serves and what do you serve. Yeah, that higher self of yourself. And compassion is really, when we step into that space, it's a really higher order thinking. Compassion doesn't just happen. It's not just like a child that just goes and does things in empathy. Compassion requires a lot of inner self sort of restraint, looking at things, contemplating, looking at a very big worldview in general, and then bringing all the attributes of empathy, of presence, of looking for greatness, of being able to utilize what's in front of you. And I love, Carol Ann, that you gave that example of sending the email, because you utilized in the moment. I mean, I know that you had to sleep on it, but that's the really beautiful thing, is we all have these moments. We all get caught. Something gets us, and we can either bite back really fast, or we can say, okay, you know what? There's something else going on here, and I don't really like what's happening to me right now. So I'm going to think about it, because maybe there's a lesson here. And that is high order thinking. That's saying, okay, there's something going on. I have this feeling, which is just the barometer of telling me that something isn't aligned with myself, and I'm going to find out. That is the real true compassion, because that's when you start being really compassionate with yourself and allowing yourself to have these feelings. They're there, and go, well, this is the barometer. That's just telling me this. It doesn't define you, but it's telling you that there's stuff that you need to look at, you need to deal with. And the fact that you were able to write that letter, that email, and you were very clear about what things, and you didn't ask. I think that was really the part of the powerful aspect, is that you made your ask, which so many people don't do. If they come back and they have something, they don't actually say, I want this. And so what happens is you kind of don't create the new relationship. And that was you creating a new relationship. And when even if she only took back 1 point, it was enough for you to let it go. It was enough, because you then understood how hard it must have been. You were already angry. So you then understood how hard it must have been for her to say, I'm sorry for that point. Yeah. And that must have taken a huge amount of courage for her to do that. And so being empathic and understanding and having compassion, you can understand the logic of what was going on beyond that, for you to then go, oh, okay, I can let this go. And then you looked at what you needed to do for you. How do I set my new relation? What do I need to look at? What do I need to change? And I think that's really something that is such a gift of utilization, and such a gift to be able to give to someone, because that is what we really do have to do. We have to step in that moment, because everybody in business, they're not going to be great. They have their own agenda, and they're in lizard brain, basically, very often. And they are really attached to the outcome because they're sitting in that fear survival place. So their energy isn't about, you know what, I'll see what happens. I'll create the relationship. I'll keep the connection. I'll do all these things. They're just looking, and inside they're going wild, and they're unable to step back and be present just with what's happening, what's unfolding, and be able to be in that space. And when we are present, we're in the moment. And I was watching a program, I don't know, it's called The Gift, which is on Netflix. It's a Turkish film, but it really is the story about learning about the balancing of these two, like night and day and yin and yang and all of these things. But it really is about knowing that there is this space where you can stop and you can choose. And you can be present, and you have to be present for that. So as a leader, and it's lovely that Nomsa says, as a leader, she doesn't do that anymore. She steps back, she chooses for her. And I think that's important. If you lead from within, you are choosing every step of the way to be aligned with that outcome of growth, of expansion, of joy that comes with it.
And I agree with you saying it's a higher order skill, compassion, because it is about being able to understand your emotions and be one with your emotion in that moment, and not let it take you over, so that you then actually react in an inappropriate way. You can actually respond in an appropriate way. And I think sometimes some people think that they're being compassionate because they got that feeling, that emotion that's there for someone else, but they actually react and they jump in to try and save the person.
Yeah.
And that actually is not supporting them. And I think that's where maybe the tough compassion comes in.
Yeah.
It is being able to step back, assess the situation, and actually say, well, is my action going in to save, or is it going in just to support and help them find their way through this? There's such a difference, and many people I see, they say they think they're being compassionate, but they're actually going in and trying to save and rescue. And that is actually disempowering for the other person, because you're not allowing them to learn what's there for them in that moment, And so, yes, I agree. Is that higher order skill, but it's based on our emotions.
Yes.
Yes. Because you get, you get to, that it's the emotional center. And if you get in there and you get that triggered, you can either get straight down into what's the reptilian brain, other people usually call the lizard brain. But it's where you are controlled. You have no access to rationality, rational thought and thinking. You can't really hear what's being said. You are completely controlled by your own emotions. And it is being able to feel those emotions actually move up into the higher cortex, where you have clear, rational thought, you have access to language, and all your senses, and you can hear more clearly, and then respond. So yeah, it is certainly something that you need to work on. It doesn't come easily, And I remember, and there's a part of me that goes, yes, I am. There's a sort of an ashamed part when I think back, and another part that goes, okay, it was part of my learning. It wasn't who I was then. I didn't know any different, but there was a member of staff that I had who, she went off with clinical depression for a year. And when she came back, I mean, I thought I was being supportive of her, and I would ring her up. And even though that was tough, that energy was really, I was struggling to stop being pulled into what I could see was this dark whirlpool of energy. And, but when she came back, I was struggling as well, and I thought I was being supportive. But there was a certain, I think, expectation from me that she should do things a certain way. And I know in one particular occasion, she'd left her medication at the other side of the school. And I made a suggestion to her because she was having a bit of a panic attack. And I suggested a brain gym activity, which I know helps to calm down. And she went, no, I can't do that, I can't. And scuttled off to get her medication. And I could feel the judgment in me going, oh, but also, well, why won't you listen to me? I know that this works. Do you know what I mean? So there was, there was that, it was a hard time, but, and I wasn't able to support her fully in the way because I was supporting the rest of the team as well, because I was head of department and attempting to run that. And there were a couple of actions that I took which didn't support her fully. But for me, it was like, well, but others have got the same issue. Why can't you cope with it? Do you know what I mean? So there was there was not that true understanding. And, but that was coming from a place of actually attempting to hang on and cope with it, the whole situation, and my own inner child who was, really running the show quite a bit then. I mean, that's, 20 odd years ago now. So I know I would deal with that differently. I'd be able to face it differently, to speak to the other person in a different way. But it just comes with doing the inner work and doing this work. And, it's looking back and going, okay, that's how it was. Declare it and don't make it wrong. It was what it was. I did the best with the resources I had available to me at the time. And I've learned from it. I'm not sure where that other person is and whether they've moved on and learned from it. But that's their journey. That's their journey. And I think that's what we have to realize. Everybody has their own learning journey. And we show up as part of their learning journey. I think that's the key thing as well, because once you can see that other people show up as part of your learning journey and you can embrace that and learn from it, the flip is to recognize that, well, actually, you're showing up to teach them something. And then you can stop making it wrong, and you can then have that compassion for yourself and stop trying to rescue the situation or make yourself wrong. But that's that was an interesting time then. I have learned a lot from it.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have to have compassion, and sometimes we have to learn our boundaries as well, because how we deal with the situation, we might think it is okay for us, but from that person, I've seen myself, I look at people when someone comes to me, or if they make a mistake, I have this feeling that I'm gonna step back. I'm not gonna do it. Although I'm a coach, I don't coach my family. I just give them words of encouragement or anything, because all I tell myself is, I look at myself, the journey that I had to take myself, that everything that I have done it has been a decision for me. Or even when someone gives me advice, it's been a decision for me to actually listen to whatever they say or the advice that they're giving me. And also, but there's a time where, like Carol Ann, you're saying this person had the depression. There's a times where sometimes you can't just walk away to someone. You have to try, because if you walk away and then something happen, you feel guilty. Or if you say, I know some people say, oh, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. But it is okay to ask someone, is there anything you want me to do? And that person gives you permission, or if you are with them, just try to help as much as you can, as long you don't give your feelings away. Because sometimes we're human. When someone gets depressed, we may start feeling the same way as well. So basically, you have to be able to actually analyze things and picture everything around you, and have compassion of give and take approach. Because if you have that compassion of give and take approach, the other person will receive the breakthrough, and you will receive the breakthrough. And mostly at work as well, it can be difficult, because sometimes some people don't want to change, and it will be difficult for you to actually, for me, basically, the people I have principles that I have in my life. It's like when it comes to relationship, I have to hang out with people that support me, that understand. Like, let's say, if I believe in something, we don't have to believe in the same way, but I need to hang out with people that are able to listen to my beliefs, and then I'm able to listen to their beliefs, not me being able to actually drag them to say, okay, these are my beliefs, you have to believe in what I believe in. I need to create a space for a room for that person to create a friendship, authentic friendship, so that that person, even at work, they are able to come and approach me. Because if you come to me and talk about your beliefs, I have to listen. Or you have an idea that you have that can change the company. All you have to do is just to have compassion, to actually be a good listener and come to a loving place, and not a judgmental. Like Carol Ann, you talk about emotions. How we respond into the situation is very, very, very important. And assess the situation as well is very, very important. And Sharina, you were talking about having compassion. It requires you to look at things deep, and allowing yourself to have the feelings, not ignoring things. Enter into those feelings, and basically being able to assess them as well, and being able to actually make a decision that does not come from judgment. I think it's very, very important to do that as well, because if we just make a decision, and by judging, like maybe you come to me and say, no, sir, this is what I'm doing, instead of me actually entering to your story, listening to your story, where you come from, and giving you advice. Like maybe sometimes you're just telling me because you're excited, you want me to get excited with you. There's so many different things that people will come with their story, but then you have to have compassion. But when it comes to work and with the business, for me, basically, I have to be tough. I have to give unconditional love. And I have to look at my business plan as well. Does this goes with what I'm planning? Or if someone comes with a brilliant idea, I have to have a room to actually change and tweak things around. There's always a room to tweak things around. And it helps you to grow as well. When you allow people to criticize and not reacting to critics, I've realized that when I allow people to criticize, but as long as they are hurting me, I'm not reacting to this situation. And if they criticize, I use those critics to actually do some research. Honestly, I use it, and it helps me a lot, to actually, you know, there are some people that criticize things because they want you to grow. So if somebody criticize, or like in Goes to Talk Show, I just go and type in some research and see what I want to do and stuff. And I'll come up with some ideas, or sometimes I'll just look at it and say, but it's not going to work with the Goes to Talk Show, or it's not going to work with the Hope Springs, the tenant introduction agency, and just use the idea. So basically, you have to be someone like emotions, like Carol Anna was saying, don't react to those emotions, which is tough. It is tough to do, to actually be that person. It means you give up your body and live in the spirit. Because if you live in the body, that means you'll be reacting to. I used to reacting to every situation. I'll be on the phone. You know, this person really, really hurt me. And my friend will be listening, and I'll be on the phone for 30 minutes or 1 hour. But now when my friends call me and they talk about it, how they've been hurt, I'm like, I just laugh. And I think, you're kidding me? And I just listen and I just laugh. And then in the end, they're like, what would you do? And I'll be like, I won't do anything, because the reaction is that whatever somebody thinks about you, or your business or whatever, you have to take it as, is it building me, or is it bringing growth into business, or is that a critics of coming through jealousy, or is it something that comes through control? Because some people like to control.
I think what you said about asking them what they want for support was a key point that you said, and I want to pick up on that, because I think that's something that I could have embraced more with that other member of staff that I had, the teacher. And instead of saying, do this, you know, I wanted to share something from my experience, said, look, how can I support you? Is actually a more empowering and actually more compassionate action to take. Because then I think you take the judgment out, in as much as I think the judgment is, I know better here. You know, I've got something that can help you. Why don't you take what I've got to give you, rather than asking. And then if they say, well, if you've got something that can support me, then fair enough, you can give it, you know. So I think that was a really important point you made there, Nomsa. Ask them. And if they don't know, then you can suggest, you know, well, I'd like to suggest this. What do you think? But come from that more empathic, softer, kinder angle, you know. But yeah, ask what they want, because I think that as a leader in business, that's how you can show up, you know, as a leader in your business, where you'll get your team on board with you more.
Yeah. I think that's one of the pivotal things, which is that ask, Caroline and Nomsa. Yeah, the asking is pivotal. And I think there's also really the idea of always focusing, what do you want to create together? What do you want to create together? And so part of that is, you know, like any conversation that I go into, is I often think about, what do I want at the end of this conversation? First and foremost, I always want the relationship. So what do I need in order to make sure that I can maintain integrity and at the same time maintain relationship, and also then reach the outcome? The outcome is, you know, I want this. But how am I going to go about that journey might require, it can maybe have one step, or it might need 3 steps. And it's really about looking at those individual components. So when you ask, well, what do you want? Or if someone asks you something about a criticism, you might ask, well, what was your intention behind that? You know, simple little things like, what is it that you really want from me? Takes them outside of themselves, and it takes them into the dream, or it takes them into the higher order intention. So using language, which I know that you're really good at, Caroline, using language that just brings people up and takes them out of being in this space here where they're in the emotions, and that people maybe don't know about NLP, but one of the things that NLP is, the more that you get them looking up, is the more they're going to be less caught up in the internal kind of emotions that are not so helpful. So you, by actually sort of saying, what do you want? And just sort of kind of moving up, directing them upwards, gives them that space to be able to not have an issue between you and them, but in front of them, so that you can both collaboratively together come up with this new kind of way of creating. And I think that's really it, because you really want to create partnership and sponsorship. And I think, Carol Ann, I mean, when you were at, you know, when we were younger, we didn't know what sponsorship was. You know, we didn't know that actually sponsorship is completely different from being there and being the rescuer, because that's what we think sponsorship is. But as we grow and evolve and start being more focused in what we want to create, what happens is we look at sponsorship in a very different way. We look at sponsorship in a form of bringing others up to our level, giving them our energy so that they are able to then create and flower in their own way. And so by asking someone what they want, what's their intention, first of all, it gives you control. Most important, because that's the one thing that they're going to need, is they're going to need you to be in control. And it's not like a hard control. It's like, if I ask that question, it gives me a minute to breathe and be present and just be curious. And then that just opens our brain, because it automatically down-regulates the feelings. It doesn't invalidate them. But what it does is there's, you know, there's more here. There's more here, and we don't have to feed the wolf, the dark wolf. We can feed the white wolf, or the wolf of spirit. And let's say the spirit wolf. Let's do it all that way. And then you are more aligned, because you're already not putting yourself personally in it. You're putting your whole self, your whole soul into it, which is very different, and you're aligned with the mission.
I love that when you're saying that word sponsorship. That's something for me to think about as well, and maybe our listeners to think about, because when we think of sponsorship, you automatically think of money being given to help or something. And it's like, well, actually, I loved what you said about what was it, bringing them up to our level so they can flourish, and they can grow, create, and flourish. And I thought, oh, that is a beautiful, beautiful thought. And yes, I'm going to look that word up and start thinking of that in a different term. And it's in language. It's reframing the words and how you use them and in what context. Yeah. And what you were saying about looking up, it's because you're looking up into the visual cortex. And when you're in your visual cortex, you can't be in your emotions, because when you're looking down, you're in kinesthetic part. So yes, I totally agree. And I used to do that with my grandchildren when they were younger, and having a bit of a strop on the way to school, and sort of like this, and their heads down, and I would go, oh, look at that bird up there, or what's up in the sky, and what shape's that cloud, or can you see any aeroplanes? And they sort of slowly bring their heads up, and then everything would change.
Everything changes because the parasympathetic kicks in the moment you move your body back. And your body moves this way. You open up the neck, and that frees up. The parasympathetic comes up from the top of the neck. And it also means that, we know that the emotional center is actually below the cortex. So it actually literally opens it up, So there's some really powerful things. And our eyes definitely have a very strong parasympathetic activator to it. So both are there. So if you're already moving your eyes up, you are automatically activating that. So we're doing a really good thing just in normal little moments. If you learn simple little things. So for example, just stepping back or just doing something like this and moving yourself and your location will give you the ability to easily and quickly with your body get into a space that will give you the opportunity to stop time.
Yes.
To stop
And be in the
time,
moment, isn't it?
be present, and then
Yeah.
choose. Yeah, and then choose.
Yeah. Magic. That's where the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
In that moment. In every single moment when you're present to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop time and be in the moment.
Yes.
Let the magic do its work. I actually agree with you, Shireen, because you talked about basically what do you want to create. You have to ask yourself, and Carol Ann, she is good with languages where I agree with you. And me, basically, I ask myself, this is the question I always ask myself when I'm with someone, when they're talking to me, I have to say in my heart, what part do I have to play here? Which part? And the moment I ask what part do I have to play, in my heart I have a clarification where someone is coming from. So I have to stop and listen to that person. That means give that person fully attention and not coming from. And also, you know, when you're listening to someone as a leader, like in Constructive Talk Show, we are all leaders, basically. So we have to promote the culture. Basically, for me, is promoting the culture for people to actually, the culture of trust, for people to trust each other and know that whenever they have problems, they can come and talk to you whenever they have personal problems. Because there are some people that would be like, oh, you know what? I'm appearing at Ngozi Talk Show today, but I have this big problem. But will Nomsa be able to listen if I tell her, or will she be able to understand that I have problem? Or will she judge me or listen? There will be so many things. But if you tell people up front, this is who I am, and this is, whenever you have problems, you can come and talk to me, and also actively encourage people and empower people to actually respond to suffering. There are some people, like when they have problems, there are some leaders, when they have problems, when you come and approach them, they don't want to know what you're going through. They will tell you straight away that I want the job done. I don't care what you're going through. You applied for this job. There are some people who will say that I've heard them saying, you applied for this job, that you will do the work. So I don't care what you're going through. Do the work and go home and sort out your problems. So there are some people like that. But when somebody is under that leadership, it's no longer a leadership anymore. That's why people, they get stressed, and because they know that I'm on my own. Whatever I'm going through at home, I can't tell somebody at work because I'm on my own. But if you, as a leader, you have to have compassion. Although we're meant to be tough at work, but you leave a room for unconditional love and have compassion and be able to encourage people to actually come with their suffering to you and explain to you. And people should be able to share problems with you. And even within the company, if there is something that is going on, if they feel that people should know, so it should be able to be their choice to say, okay, this is what I'm going through. So everyone can support each other, because work is very stressful on its own. And having problems at home as well, it can bring stress. So that means you lose focus when you're working. So as a leader, it is very, very important when someone comes to you with their suffering, with their pain, or with their ideas, and to ask yourself, what part do I need to play here? Is the part of being nasty, or do I need to come in a place of compassion and just listen to this person and be there for them? So that means, and when you're nice to people, people do the work.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And that's a great point. So this is how you can actually demonstrate it in the workplace, is actually showing that compassion and saying, look, how can we make this work? Because just telling somebody, oh, get on with the job and go home and sort it out doesn't help them. So having that ability to just say, well, how can we make this work? How can, we support you at the moment with what you're going through, and how can we get this job done? It's working in partnership. And I think that was something that was mentioned earlier in this discussion about partnership, creating that relationship of working together. And that is the key, I think, of how you can demonstrate compassion in the workplace and show up as a leader as well. But also, workmates, people working together. How can you support each other? Because it's not just about the person in charge. It's about work, work comrades, someone showing up as a leader in terms of how can I support my teammate, to help them get their job done and get, so the job gets done. Because yes, ultimately you are being paid to do a job, and there is that expectation you need to get the job done. So that has to be first and foremost there as a guiding principle, a guiding light, with in the background, how can I get this job done with what is going on right now? And asking for support. Say, well, look, could you do this for me? I just need to go and have a discussion, or, find a way through collaboration, working together, asking for support and offering support. It is a two-way, and I think, who was it said, it's a give and a take. It's a two-way thing. It is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what we kind of think that leaders are leaders that are out there. Everybody is a leader. Everybody is a leader. And I think we need to keep realizing that for ourselves. We are all leaders. And so when we are in any conversation with anyone, if we step into that leadership role, we're leading ourselves, but we're also helping them in the leadership that we're being, so they don't get fuzzy and not know what we are. Because really it is important that we all recognize that as we grow, that we are leaders. And as leaders, we really need to understand how we are leading. How are we leading? And we can only lead by example. We can only do that. And so if we are, compassionate, if we are present, and if we're kind, if we have a goal, how can I do this given all these circumstances? And I think that's really the key, Carol Ann, is that the idea, what you said, which is that, it is about how do we do this together collectively? Given all of this, how do we negotiate those times where someone might not be able to do this? And, at the same time, know that there's some responsibility, there's some ability where they're going to have to work together. So, it is really about teaching each other to be respectful of each other so that we don't literally take the piss, but at the same time that people are able to hold each other to account. Because that, and be able to lead people through that and show that you also do that for yourself. And I think that once we get to this idea, we're all leaders and we don't need anybody else to lead us. They are there for us so that we can get whatever this job, if it's a job, there's an outcome. Whatever that outcome is, then what is our contribution as that leader within our little group, within our friends, whatever we're doing, where are we leading?
Yeah. And it's done without criticism, without putting someone else down because they're not doing what you think they should be doing. And that is, maybe is your top leader. if they're not acting the way that you think they should be,
Yeah.
that's not helpful either. It's about going and asking, how can you support them, or what? It's bringing them, including them in the conversation, and not making them wrong, because that's where it all gets nasty.
Yeah,
it really
and
does.
I think this is where probably what we don't do is a reflective diary. If you do a reflective diary, certainly in business, and I know certainly when I used to nurse, it was so important to have that reflective diary. Come look at the end of the day, all the things that you did, but also be aware of everything, of patterns of other people as well, because if you want to create change, you've got to give some evidence of change. You've got to give evidence for the change needing to have happened. And I remember once I was working with, in a hospital where there was a surgeon that was brilliant. But unfortunately, often his clients were a little confused. They were older, and he never really had a bloodless field. These patients were amazing, but they got confused 2 to 3 days afterwards, whereas none of the others did. And I just thought, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong, and I'm not sure what it is. The wounds don't bleed. They're walking on day 3, day 4, but something's not okay. And then I just started to look at all the anesthetic notes, and then I realized they were dropping the blood pressure very low. And that too low for them. And when I actually, one day I called him and I said, look, I know this is not maybe what you want to hear, but this is something I've noticed, and maybe you haven't really been aware because you're here so early in the morning. And he kind of said, oh my goodness, is this what's happening? So I said, yeah, well, this is what we've noticed. And I gave him something like 20 cases. And he just said, oh, this needs changing.
Yeah.
Because the other person was the anesthetist hadn't told him. And so there was this thing. And so that was a really interesting thing. So you need evidence, and you need to step back, not get caught up in the emotion of it. You need to be able to go, you know what, this I can do something to fix. I can change this. I can help the situation and maybe give a suggestion how it might be ameliorated or why I think this is happening. And then leave it to them. Trust that they will make the decision they need to make. And don't nag them. Just kind of go, I've given you the information. It's up to you. So reflective diaries are really important. Have the evidence that you need, not looking at it critically, but discerning in a discerning way. And just really do that so that when you do say to people, this was this, this was this, this was this, we're just noticing something's going on. Is there an issue going on for you? What you're doing is you're just highlighting. And that's where a leader is really a leader. And they're willing to really look and take the time to just notice things in the way that they need to notice. So
that's really powerful. That's really powerful, because you're not making that person wrong. You didn't make him wrong. You just pointed out what you'd observed and allowed him to come to his own conclusion. Really powerful. I love that. Yeah.
I love it too. That's helping someone to grow, because it's a team. It's a teamwork. It's called a teamwork.
But he couldn't make those observations himself because he wasn't there, as you said. It's, so you were his eyes, in
the morning or whatever, and and depending on people, we're scared because we think doctors are, in the thing, they're in the different realm, and you're in this space, but I had always been taught that my patients matter the most.
Yes.
And I had to work out what was more important. And so I had to do the tough decision of actually doing the confronting in a way, but I had to think really hard about what he would need. And I had to think very hard about how I would say it to not make him wrong. Because what was the point of making him wrong?
Yeah.
Nothing. I trusted that he really did his ops for that reason, because he really believed they were the best way. And I think that's the key, is really look to think about what are people doing. They're generally often doing it for the best intention. May not necessarily pan out right, but it is the best of intention. And then to step back and just focus on that and look at how can we create more? How can we bring more?
Yeah.
Any words of encouragement, Shireen, before we leave, please?
Yeah, I think the thing that's really useful is you have the power within. All you have to do is be quiet, go within and just say, does this make me feel good or not? And really be sure, if this feels good, what kind of good is it? Is it a good that's really expansive? Is it something that makes me want to move towards people and help and be more, create more? Then that's the step you take. You take that next step. If it's something that the energy feels awful, then and you feel small, or you feel like you want to react in some way, then that's the energy, that's the survival energy, the reptilian brain energy, and that's not going to serve you. So if it feels good, if it feels expansive, if it makes you move towards in love and empathy and compassion, then that's the one to take.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shireen. Carol, any words of encouragement?
Yeah, just remember something I always say, stop and breathe. Just notice where maybe you're holding your breath, and you stop and breathe, and be prepared to allow time to reflect, allow time to shift things, because a part of me last night wanted to react there and then, and it took all my sort of willpower and knowing that that's not going to be helpful, to say, no, I'm going to sleep on this, and just trust the process. But yeah, be prepared to give it time, and make sure you're breathing. Take that breath.
So often I do EMDR and the first thing is I've got to say, hey, breathe.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe.
And then you listen, breathe.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we do need more compassion in this world. If we have people with more compassion, I think this world will be a better place. I think, like Carol Ann is saying, no matter what is going on, just breathe. Be aware of the language, like Shirino was saying, the language that we use to other people, even to ourselves as well. And a reflective diary. So I don't have a reflective diary. I always have, like in the day, I always reflect on my day, but I never really have a diary where I write everything down. So looks like I need to go and buy another diary. My room is my place is full of diaries, so there's a room for another diary just to reflect on the day, on how I can improve my character and my compassion place.
Well, so, I think it's really, just to go back, it's really about not looking at it critically, but just in the sense of what went well, what didn't, and what am I going to do about it tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. And if something's about something else, then you just scribble that, but really not too much. Just enough so that when you go to bed at night, the what am I going to do goes into your psyche.
Yeah.
Sleep. Yeah. And that's when
got that noted. Got that. Thank you so much. So we are here Monday to Friday at Ngozi Talk Shows. And please, if you're watching this video, press some heart button and share the video with your friends. And God bless you, everyone. Have a lovely weekend and see you soon.